Hello, I'm Mayor Regina Bailey. Each month we feature a local notable nonprofit. In the following program, City Channel 4 producer Katie Roach will sit down with this month's selection for the Mayor's Monthly Notable Nonprofit.
Hello and welcome to the Mayor's Monthly Notable Nonprofit. I am here at the Neighborhood Centers of Johnson County Broadway location with Executive Director Brian Loring, and Brian's going to tell us everything that we need to know about the Neighborhood Centers. Thank you, Brian, for being here.
Welcome to the Neighborhood Centers, Katie.
So the first thing I noticed in coming in today is that there is a lot going on here.
It's a busy place. We have sort of four categories of programming that we do here, and we start off really with our early childhood programs, and as you mentioned, there are kids passing by the window here. We have programs for infants, toddlers, preschoolers here at the center. We also do programming for school-age youth. So we've got, in the afternoons, we have after-school programs, a lot of out-of-school time programming for kids. So today, we've got programs at Mark Twain School. So our staff are doing after-school programs there at Mark Twain. We have a variety of different kinds of teen activities here at the center. So that's sort of a range of youth programming that we do. We also have summer day camps that are very large. We do some youth employment kinds of things, just in pre-employment kinds of things to prepare kids for jobs. We also have programming for adults in that we do a lot of parent-related activities. So we will have, for instance, home visits for parents, particularly parents who have infants and toddlers. We'll go into the home and do some work with families who are maybe looking to figure out nutritional things for an infant, or are in need of some parenting assistance. We do that as well. And we do groups in the center, parenting groups that are focused on particular issues or concerns that parents might have. We've done a couple of very successful groups around parenting well while depressed, which has been pretty successful and popular in the neighborhood for parents who have suffered some kind of mental illness or depression and are parents. We also do what we refer to as community development, and we look at issues that aren't necessarily individually based, but are issues that affect the neighborhood as a whole. So this morning we have a group meeting here, which is the Restorative Justice Group, which is really a collection of stakeholders from the neighborhood that come together monthly and do some information sharing, but also do some planning as to what we might be able to do to improve the availability of youth activities in the neighborhood. So there's a lot of stuff happening here. It's a very busy place. One of the important things to take away from the neighborhood centers is that we really are an organization that focuses we're not necessarily focused on need or crisis, but rather providing a welcoming space day to day for families to come and use. It's not that we don't deal with crisis, it's not that we don't deal with need, but the message that we like to put out there is that you don't have to be, it's not your deficits that are important to us. We want you to be a part of the neighborhood centers, and you can come in on the best day of your life or the worst day of your life, but we're open both days. So. Well,
that's great. I think one of the things that is lacking in many neighborhoods is just sort of a central place for everyone to gather together. Everyone's in their apartments or their houses, and so this truly is a center for the neighborhood.
And there are computers that people access, and do job resumes, update their Facebook page. There's all that sort of stuff that happens here too. And I think the other thing that we really put a strong emphasis on is connecting families to one another. And one of the things that we know, we operated for a long time sort of on the intuition that connecting families to one another was important, and that if you had a strong network of support, you just did better. I mean, this is true for any income group or any income family. we happen to deal mostly with low-income families here at the center, but it's true for all families. And that if you have a strong natural network of support, you will do better when a crisis arises. So we build into all of our programs opportunities for families to connect to one another, and so that by doing that, we in turn strengthen those networks of support for folks.
That's wonderful. With the child care center, how many kids are coming?
We do childcare here at Broadway, and then we have a center across town, the Pheasant Ridge Center, which is located in the Pheasant Ridge neighborhood off of Mormon Trek. And then we also have a classroom over at Grant Wood Elementary School. We have a preschool there. So with all of those together, we probably have 140 kids in infant, toddler, and preschool classrooms on any given day.
Great. Are there volunteer opportunities for people?
We do have volunteer opportunities at the neighborhood centers. There are, we have a lot of folks that come in and like to do sort of one-time volunteer opportunities. So they'll come in and we do cleanup of, maybe do some neighborhood cleanup kinds of things. A couple of weeks ago, there was a big group of folks that came in, a lot of vistas and some volunteers from the neighborhood who were in the process of doing a survey in the neighborhood, and so they were deployed and went out and collected a couple of hundred surveys in the neighborhood. So it was a really big group of folks. I think there were probably close to 100 people. So they went out in teams of 2 and 3 and did door-to-door surveys. So there's those kinds of opportunities, and then of course there's always opportunity to come and be in a classroom or work in an after-school program. In the summer, we will get some folks who come in to volunteer to be a part of our summer day camp. We're always looking for, and we have a lot of folks in the neighborhood that come in and do cleaning and that kind of stuff around the neighborhood center. So it's, there's a range of available opportunities here to volunteer.
Now, what would you say to someone who lives in the Broadway neighborhood or the Pheasant Ridge neighborhood who hasn't come into the center, hasn't checked out the services, and maybe they say, "Oh, that's not for me. There's nothing there for me." What would you do to encourage them to come on in?
Well, I think that, to be really frank, that doesn't happen often, because I think that whether it's knowing about the center before you move to the neighborhood or having that sort of word of mouth or the connection through the school, generally most people in the neighborhood visit the neighborhood centers, if not regularly, semi-regularly. So we have folks that either are directly connected through a program or are dropping in to use the computer or want us to send a fax or that sort of thing. So we've never really had an issue with people not making use of the centers. And I think the other aspect of that is that we are based right in the neighborhood, and it's so we're so easy to access because for most folks it's a walk across the street. So that I think has been really useful in terms of making ourselves available and allowing people to access the centers.
Well, both the Pheasant Ridge neighborhood and the Broadway neighborhood, when you drive into this area, you notice that there's a lot of apartment buildings, and so therefore there's more condensed population. So how many people do you think that you serve?
We serve regularly in daily programs about 2,000 people a year are in some sort of program here at the center.
That's quite an impact on the community.
Well, I think that we've really seen some important outcomes, particularly for young children in our programs, and I think we are also seeing some significant impacts in terms of what we're doing with community development kinds of things, in terms of the neighborhood as a whole, and coordinating and organizing resources to better serve the neighborhood. So, I feel like we spend quite a bit of time looking at and reviewing the outcomes that we're achieving with programs, and I think that we are pretty proud of the early childhood programming that we do here.